And we should be live.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. We are live. Welcome to Gehenna Gaming. I am Archosius. We have Jeff Malkavian with us as well. And of course, we have the eternal Matthew Webb of Jackalope.
The Eternal?
The Eternal. The Unflappable.
May he reign forever.
Either that or I'm part of a second string Marvel comic.
Ooh, yes.
I like that.
Deep cuts. All right.
Deep cuts. Wave 8 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So Matt, you're a software developer, AR game developer, you're creative partner for Jackalope Live Action Studios. The night in question tickets are live. I believe there might be a couple of discounted tickets left.
There are 5 discount early bird tickets. You get $25 off, so they're only $150.
Perfect. So excellent. So 3 people. If you could just go and buy tickets now, that'd be great. And then me and Jeff Malkavian can grab the other 2. But the United Questions in September. We're very excited. This is the 3rd year in a row. I am very excited to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on Gehenna Gaming. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. This is I've really loved all of your stuff, and I loved a lot of your interviews and everything. So it was really great for you guys to invite me on. Yeah. And thanks to Rachel for apparently talking your ear off about our experiences.
That was amazing.
My Malkavian best buddy, Rachel Lindman, is so cool.
Yeah. So,
also known as the one who looks exactly like Damsel
with
from
real fangs.
Bloodlines. Yes, those fangs are real.
So the funny part, and I don't know if she's watching. If you are, hi Rachel. But there's a couple of promo images from Night in Question, and I think one of them is her completely covered in blood with her fangs. With the, I don't think I've ever been that happy in my life, except for
she was literally finger painting on the walls with blood. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So
we have these literal blood buckets. Yeah, no,
she was I think I maybe have gone a little far with spraying the blood all over Matt's set.
No, that was perfect.
I'm like, well, it's Night in Question, so. Yeah,
I mean, we use like kids poster paint. Like it cleans up fairly well, but there's still like if you go out to this game site that we have, which is this kind of rockabilly concert rave venue that they also use for boffer LARPing. It's all these wood buildings, and there's still trace lines of like blood splatters, some of which are hers, some of which aren't. Blood splatters are just part of the Night in Question experience. It's LARP with a splash zone. It's, the best compliment I've ever heard for it is that it is the Gwar concert of LARPs.
Ah, that's so good.
Holy
so
crap.
Good. If you've never been to a Gwar concert, I highly suggest it.
Have you been?
Yeah, I've been to 3, and it is amazing every single time. Gwar is touring, even though Odorous is no longer with us. But I am excited about Night in Question, especially after that description. I have never been, but anybody that I run across, it's raise their hand, says yes, I've been. It's like, okay, sit down and tell me everything.
Yeah, and they've had nothing but the highest caliber of praise.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've always been very happy with everybody's feedback. I mean, our players are the ones who deserve most of the credit for that. We have a really good set of players, and we have a really good crew, and I'm just a tiny fraction of that. I mean, one of the dirty little secrets about gaming is the game master maybe has influence over 20% of what happens. And we just have managed to have a really great player base, and we continue to keep growing it. And it's kind of become, we have a customer base, but it's also just kind of our family and our culture that surrounded our company. I've been very happy with, and I'm kind of humbled by it.
It's good to have a team together that are so invested in the experience of all the participants, not just just to have a successful event, but to make sure everyone's having a good time doing it as well.
Oh yeah, no, everyone should, and everyone on top of that, LARP is unique, or at least role playing is unique in the fact that the spectators are the audience, or the audience are the players, and so our players are also consistently been top notch. I can think of no other medium in which the audience and the actors are the same.
So
it's kind of unique.
So before we get
It's an
into
interesting
it,
way to look at that dynamic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
before we get into it, if you don't mind, there's a couple of people that are on our stream right now who may not have heard of Night in Question or don't really fully understand what makes the Night in Question so special, and so different than your typical neighborhood, Masonic hall or cafeteria LARP.
Call it, yeah, the student union LARP.
Yeah.
So to start off, there's nothing wrong with those games. I still play in those games. I love those games. But for those of you who might even be like even more out of the loop, LARP stands for live action role playing. It is the alternative to sitting around a table. Is people dress up as their characters and inhabit a space as their characters. Vampire LARP is one of the largest types of LARP in the world. And it's been the one where, if you ever remember the old, Laws of Night stuff, it's the rock, paper, scissors version of Vampire. And that's been going on for 20 years. I think the LARP rules came out in 93.
Yeah.
So it's 25 years, which is crazy.
Wow.
But as opposed, so that's been going on for a long time. But there's been another kind of movement in the LARP sphere of what started out being called Nordic LARP or block, and then it evolved. Like a version of Nordic LARP was called Blockbuster LARP. And what Blockbuster LARPs and our style, which we call bespoke LARPs, focus on, is less on rules and more of kind of a collaborative exercise in telling a story in a live action space. And the reason they started being called blockbusters is that the tickets were quite a bit more than your student union or Masonic Hall LARP, which, it's usually $20 was considered expensive because they were just trying to cover the site fee. And the idea behind a blockbuster LARP was, let's spend more money, let's rent out really cool, unique spaces, and let's have a budget to do a big production. And let's not do an ongoing campaign. Let's put a bunch of effort into one night, one weekend, and have an absolute blast and just recreate a part of the world. So it's almost more of a Westworld style experience where you want to go and really immerse yourself in it. And 4 years ago, we approached White Wolf and said, hey, we want to do this because the White Wolf had put on several Nordic style, blockbuster style LARPs in Europe. They had done End of the Line, which was a anarch focused game that was set at an illegal rave or a legal party that was in an insane asylum outside of Helsinki. And it was very cool, where like 90% of the players were clueless mortals. It was mainly about these terrible people that were at this illegal party. You had drug dealers and just college kids and random people. And so they had this anarch-focused rave game. And then they did Enlightenment and Blood, which was at World of Darkness Berlin, which was probably the most amazing LARP experience I ever had, because they literally went to the club district of Berlin, East Berlin, which was built, like several places were built in this old like Soviet red brick rail yard. It was all these clubs, and they rented out entire bars and clubs just for this game. You could only get into it if you're this game. And there was like 250 people involved. And you had to walk through the streets of Berlin to get from the various game locations. They rented out a church like this that was abandoned, turned into. Yeah, it was crazy. And like 250 people involved for the anarch takeover of Berlin. And I was involved in running that. We were part of the tech team for it. So we were all playing virtual adepts just so we had an excuse to always be on our laptops. Seriously, that's the reason why we played them. It was great. All of our powers were like, leave me alone now. Smart. You don't pay attention to me, because the powers were like really simplified. It was used this keyword called really, really, which is like, you really, really don't pay attention to me right now.
You really, really let me drink my coffee right now.
Exactly, right.
Arcane. Yeah.
Exactly. And so but we were involved in that. And man, you have not lived until you've seen 25 guys playing anarchs wearing black leather walking down this like rain puddled alleyway in East Berlin.
Oh my God.
And
feel
we
so
were in the
badass.
middle. Yeah, the mundanes were out. You know, this was a club district on Friday. And, and I just watched these two guys, and they did not look like, you know, they're pushovers. But these two guys in the brown leather jackets like step out of this other bar that wasn't involved in the game, and see these guys walk past, and they just stepped right back in. And they were like, I don't know what to deal with that. But yeah, I mean, they had like that big just fuck you energy going on, excuse my French. But all that went on, and we turned around and we said to White Wolf, hey, we want to get involved in this. I've been doing other LARPs of my own and been involved in Vampire LARP and stuff like that. So I said, hey, we want to do something of our own. You know, we had been involved in running some of these things. And they said, okay, what do you want to do? And we said, well, we have this crazy idea. We want to do, you've done the Anarchs, you've done this Camarilla focus thing. We want to do the Sabbat, and we want to do it like Texas style.
Oof.
And we have a abandoned ranch, like kind of
Says
rave
everything.
setting that is only a few miles from where they filmed Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Awesome.
And
Beautiful.
we want to do like a full on like Blade, Blood Rave, Temple of Destruction sort of Sabbat thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're insane. And like, possibly, but this is awesome. And so we had a lot of conversations, and we kind of had to prove to them that we were not going to, you know, end up on the national news. And we exactly. Well, as we've learned, not all publicity is good publicity. So we did it, and the entire setup for the game was, it's 1998, and this is a rave that the Sabbat have set up as a trap to do a shovel party, and they're about to do a siege on Austin. So most of the people show up at the rave, and they're just normal mortals. They're people, you know, they're club people, they're drug dealers, they're, you know, hippie types or whatever.
Jinkos and candy.
So many Jinkos. I actually, candy bracelets have screwed up candy bracelets have become a Night in Question tradition.
Amazing.
Like, yeah, like I have one with skulls and red beads on it that says hunger. And there's another one that says blood and killer and all this stuff. So,
666.
yeah, stuff like that. And people we didn't tell people to do that, just started doing it because
That's
our
cool.
players are awesome. But they started doing you show up, and the majority of the players are mortals. There's only maybe 1 out of every 5 characters is a vampire.
Oh wow.
And by the end of the night, it turns into a shovel party, it turns into a blood temple. There's a mass embrace, there's hanging bodies, there's horrible Zamisi creations, there's a blood fountain and a body chandelier. And, you know, you get embraced. We have these boffer shovels that we can hit you over the head with. And it's, you know, when we do this burial thing where we do the old school, hit you over the head and bury you, embrace rites. And we have a fake graveyard. And it's quite an experience. And it's about basically this night where people go from being normal people to being monsters. And it's about exploring this really kind of dark part and this we could use the term splatterpunk, because there's nothing subtle about it. It's a contrast to the political horror and subtlety of most games, and the fact where what we want to have people come out of this experience is, it's like, oh, this is why the Sabbat are scary. It's because they're completely unrepentant monsters, but also they're religious fanatics. Great. All right, now I'm actually scared of these guys. You know? Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot of technical elements to it as well. I mean, you're talking about the body chandelier and the blood fountains and everything else. How many how many, I guess, you know, special effects professionals are working on this thing? Like, how many of you are kind of gearing up the scenery?
Oh yeah, so we have our stage manager who is Charlie Boas, he's an amazing guy. He's been in the industry, like theater industry, for years, and he used to work at a circus. And you can tell he's the one who, if we ever need an elephant, he knows how to handle it. And I'm not lying. But we also have like Peyton Moe, who has been a huge haunt person. She's worked at Jared's Labyrinth. Jared's Labyrinth in LA, the big labyrinth themed party that they have every year.
Yep.
And then she's done stuff for Netflix series, and she's been working on it. We have tons of different people that we bring in. So we have about 5 or 6 people that are just making bodies, but Peyton is the lead FSX special effects artist, and Charlie is the other one. Jack Weeks is our big NPC wrangler, but he also does a whole bunch of like the set work. And part of the reason why you pay more for this type of game than you would another game is to give us the materials to do that. And also we have what we call murder toys, which is like we have props that are also made available to the players. We have fake chains, we have contact safe weapons, we have the blood that Rachel threw around, and we make those available during, like, as the night degenerates into this, goes from being a party to an entirely different sort of party. We bring out that stuff and it becomes accessible and part of the environment. Peyton has this great phrase, which are props or toys, play with them. And we encourage people to like interact. And we also have a monomacy pit that has like fake flames coming out of it on this bridge. Wow. You might have seen a picture from it.
Yeah.
And all sorts of stuff like that. So there's a lot of set dressing. The site loves us. It's a bunch of LARPers who run it. Nice. And a bunch of like rockabilly kind of horror guys, and they help us out. But there's basically a flurry of action between the 2 weeks before the event, getting everything set up.
That's awesome. I mean, the immersion is really a big part of this. I mean, everything that you're putting together, it really helps people to get into their character and get into the situation. And it sounds like an intense situation indeed. But before
that's why it's so important why we have all the coaching. We had to do like 6 hours of workshopping before the game even starts. So like, this is how you do the stuff safely. This is how you check in with your fellow players. Yeah. These are the limits of how you play, because there's so much like that can go wrong.
Yeah.
If you just don't have rules. But we establish like nothing happens to you at this game that you don't want to, but kind of embrace the horror of it. But you have limits, and they will be respected. And if they don't, we will attack nuke people from orbit.
Yeah, and I heard, I think it was right after the first year, you had Nathan Seaver from Utility Muffin Labs, the 25 years of ETM guys. Yeah, he is. And I remember him talking about your workshops and being like really just kind of impressed by the level of teaching that's involved, especially for people who are new to LARP. The signs, the what is okay, what is not okay. I think I remember you saying that they had glow sticks that were different colors that kind of show your level of involvement. Red is do not want to be physically involved or touched. Yeah, and green is like an anything goes. I think that's brilliant. I know lately.
Well, the important part of that is that was we emphasized. This is just the start of a conversation. Yes. That's not consent.
Right.
This is where I'm comfortable you starting, but I can still say no to it ever. So if I have a green armband, that means you can broach the subject of physical contact.
Right.
But you still have to talk about it.
We always have to talk about it, and you can revoke it at any time.
Consent
that's great.
Is a hugely important subject, and one that we're concerned about as well. I mean, even just with the tabletop games that we run, we've been talking about this for months. So people are I hope people aren't tired of hearing us talk about it. But we're helping to bolster a culture of consent in gaming, specifically formalized consent. At LARPs, we're talking about. You're doing your wristbands and having a culture of verbalized consent, and no is an option.
The OK check-in is a big thing if you're familiar with that.
I want to talk about that. What's the OK check-in? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So the OK check-in, that was originally put forward. It's where it comes from is debated. I think that originally originated from a gentleman called Aaron in LA. It was perpetuated by College of Wizardry and either College of Wizardry and New World Magiscola, which are 2 Harry Potter LARPs. It gained a great deal of prominence. So the OK check-in. So we always want to know if you're not a psychopath, you don't want to know if the person you're playing with is okay.
Yeah.
But when you're in a scene, either at a table or if you're at a LARP, especially, but anywhere, there's always a social pressure not to interrupt or not to disrupt the flow of things, because you don't want to interrupt a great scene with like, are you really crying or are you just a good actor, right?
Yeah.
So there's this idea, the OK check-in was developed where if you go up to somebody and you get flashed them the OK sign, like down here, and they can respond one of 3 ways, which is, 4 ways. Thumbs up means this is fine. I am out of character fine. I am crying my eyes out in character, but I'm fine. This is, I'm not sure how I feel about this. And then thumbs down is, I am not okay. This or this means the scene is stopped.
Yeah.
And you interact out of character. And this means the scene's over.
Yeah.
This means let's calibrate. And we often... Exactly. And we use the term, these are calibration mechanics is what we call them.
Yeah.
Because the other thing you can do, the 4th response is this, which is not only is this good, I would like more of this. Shout at me more. Right.
I am a good fake crier. Yes. This is
yeah. I am loving the misery. Please give me more. And so what you're trying to do is tune that needle in to where everybody is comfortable. And that is the only way to do this kind of game where you have stage fighting and blood and all this other stuff. You have to negotiate. And we also teach negotiation. It has been pointed out to the consent-based LARP community that some assholes who like waving the flags of countries that lost wars think the symbol is theirs. Fuck those people. They don't get to tell me what to do.
Good for you.
Yeah, no, I fully agree.
And using that, I mean, it's so intuitive too, and it adds there's a certain nonverbal element to it that it's not like they feel like they are disrupting anything.
Exactly.
It's almost like the other part of your brain can make that symbol, can do the I don't know, and I'm not really breaking anything, and I'm not really ruining anyone's fun, but I am making sure that I am communicating that I'm not exactly okay with this.
I am caring about, and also it allows me to care about you as a player without necessarily interrupting your fun, because we have a phrase at Jackalope, which is people are more important than LARPs. And, we try to hold to that. Yeah. And nobody is more important than a LARP.
Absolutely.
And you're going to have so many people from around the world
LARP is more important than anybody. Sorry.
Who are going to need a simple, they're going to need something simple, like thumbs up, thumbs down, the OK symbol. Those are universally recognized. You don't have to know like American
they are
Sign
universal
Language
because if you go to Italy, this is not what you think it is.
It's a swear, right?
But, really?
Oh. Yeah, this means you're an asshole.
Well, this one too, right?
Oh,
is the doula is a Eastern European, kind of similar.
But it's an American game.
We're learning today.
Yeah. We had to deal with that at Enlightenment and Blood Berlin because people are like, "We'll do this," and all the Italians snickered.
You're like, "No, we're doing
either Italians or Spaniards." I can't remember. Yeah, now you're in Texas. We do things the Texas way. Yeehaw!
Much bigger.
So,
always bigger.
One question: what have you noticed that was different year 1 to year 2 in terms of how things unfolded, or even just some of the interesting things you picked up that you had a good time with? Or
so one of our big concerns going into this year is you're always iterating on stuff. So we did some things were better because we changed them. Some things didn't go as well because we changed them. So the biggest difference that I noticed though is that the end of the night in the last first night question, the energy wore down a lot. There wasn't enough going on in the 4th act, and there wasn't as seamless a transfer. And also the pacing of like the horror and the embraces wasn't right. It was too front loaded because everyone wanted to run off and embrace everybody. So we actually put in rules that slowed things down and paced them out more, so that the players didn't. What I say from a GME standpoint is the players don't eat all the chocolate ice cream and get a stomachache, because and we've all been in that situation, right? Where I was like, I wanted this so much, yet I hurt myself with it.
I can't believe I ate the whole box and now there's none left.
Yeah, and now I have a stomachache.
Yeah.
So we paced things out a lot better. The energy was a lot higher.
Yeah.
This massive cold snap hit about 11 a.m., which is
or
11 p.m. So we're outside. It's November. It's Texas November, and it was wonderful out. And then suddenly this little micro cold snap hit. And we're like, it just got really chilly. It like dropped 10 degrees in 10 minutes. I checked. Yeah. So so that was unaccounted for, but everyone had a great time. We had the Blood Rave this year, which was great. That was the first year we did it, where we have these sprinklers on the dance floor that spit out this
blade style.
Yeah, it had
the video
more
on that
watery than our usual blood mix, but it was a really great thing. The only thing I'm going to have next year is I'm going to make sure that at some point we light the dance floor in white, not red, because all those photos look great. You don't see half as much blood because we decided to light the place red during the Blood Rave, which is nice, but the photos don't do justice to how coated everyone was. And everyone was like, that was like, I think Scott Cuban said that was like a moment to be in, and I was so happy with it.
It's so cool that you incorporated that. I mean, that's kind of like a hypothetical moment that a lot of vampire players, I'm sure we've all talked about. Like, how cool would it be to go to a rave and there's like that scene in Blade with the sprinkler system throwing blood down. I mean, that's a cool scene, and it's as a vampire you kind of.
So how many times have you been at a blood rave with a bunch of vampires and people in fangs, and Justin Achille is DJing as there's blood sprayers going on? Because Justin Achille was the one who was DJing for us, the editor of the 3rd edition World of Darkness.
Is he DJing again? Is he DJing this year?
He hasn't gotten back to us. He's a busy guy. He works in the game industry. I know he wants to come back. Yeah. So believe me, the moment he says, yes, I have the time off, let's do this, we're going to brag about that. But we're definitely looking at getting this. Yeah.
One of our preloaded questions was, is he coming back to DJ? Because that just looked like so much fun.
We have definitely asked him, and we are going to wait for a response. And we're definitely looking at getting other special guests. B. Dave Walters wanted to come, but he had an obligation because he was like, oh, yes, definitely. What date is it? And it was like September 12th. And he was like, crap. Hey, he's got to make his money, so I don't begrudge him that. Absolutely. I mean, he's going to D&D in a castle that weekend, and I'm like, I can't compete with that. Go do your thing. Yeah, he gets to go run D&D in a castle in England.
That's amazing. That's a good excuse. We'll give it to him this time.
I'll allow that. All right, but next time, B-Dave. No, I'm kidding. B-Dave's
only because it's in England. Otherwise,
yeah. Freaking castles.
So you talked about, well, hey, listen, maybe one year Jackalope will have a, I don't know, I'm not going to feed ideas to you, but I'm just thinking maybe Cathedral of Flesh in a castle.
Oh, let's see, that's about $1,000 a ticket. I'm sure we can get someone else to do that. Yeah.
Beautiful
I mean, if you want to LARP in a castle,
covered it in flesh.
If you want to LARP in a castle, Turbo LARP over in Europe is renting a castle in Poland to do Convention of Thorns. They're reviving that game.
Yeah. So that
looks good too.
That was one of the things that I was very excited when you guys came around, is that, seeing the Convention of Thorns, and oh my God, how cool would it be? But I'm in New England, USA, so that might not happen. And then, the night in question and everything else. I mean, that's awesome that you're doing this kind of best in class, immersive, experiential LARPs in the United
That's very
States.
Kind of you to say. That's very kind of you to say.
It's very exciting for me personally, and for us as a group. We're all jazzed up about it.
Oh yeah.
But I want to talk about the player workshop that you mentioned earlier. So, how much initial work went into developing those workshops? And I guess how you said it's quite a few hours long. What have you tweaked over the couple of times of doing this between the different LARPs that you've had?
The script has mainly stayed the same, luckily. We had some really good iteration on it with several people. If you look at actually our if you want to get like a written version of it, if you go on the jackalope-larp.com website and you look at our guides, there's a Jackalope guide to LARPing hard and safe. And if you look in there, there's a whole bunch of credits. So we iterated over it really extensively the first night in question, because what we realized is that we're taking people who are used to, if they come from a conventional LARP environment, they're used to conflict-driven play, they're used to an adversarial system, and they're used to very strong no-touching rules.
Yeah.
So we weren't in the same situation as, say, when they ran Into the Line in Finland, or they ran Enlightenment Blood in Berlin, because the European LARP scene is already very much in this more consent-based role. They don't have the same sort of conflict-based systems as we do. They encourage, drama and engagement, and they don't have as big a culture of like abstraction.
Yeah.
So they go to a LARP to do the live part of the live action. And so we had to kind of rebuild that in the US, and it's gaining steam in the US. There's other games which have done it very, very well, but I developed it along with Bjarke Peterson, who's from Participation Design Agency, is the one who did Enlightenment of Blood. They were also the ones who created Into the Line. They're this great, really smart people, Bjarke and Gehenna from there. And they helped us develop it. They've been involved in the Nordic LARP scene for many, many years. And I heartily recommend all of their stuff. And we just kind of had to rebuild that from scratch and explain to an American audience how this stuff works, and that this is not a disaster waiting to happen. There's a lot of misconceptions about consent-based play and calibration. So we had to kind of build away from that.
It's
and
almost
build
like
our own world. Yeah.
It sounds like you kind
And
of
it seems like it worked out. Yeah.
You had kind of an open slate. It was kind of starting from the ground up. It's not like you had to break a system. You basically had to build one from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, we had to challenge some assumptions, because we just had to, make sure people understood going into it, this is a different type of game. In many ways, the new players have an easier time of it. We have a very good reputation for brand new players, first-time LARPers. We're very easy to get into. We're not very rules heavy. Because it's a consent-based system, you have a lot of control over your experience. And we don't really have people who are we don't have an inner circle and an outer circle, really. So we're a very good first-time LARP. It's a one-shot, so you get to play whatever you're going to play. And you're not walking into people who've been playing the same game for 20 months or whatever.
Right.
So we have a really good time. And so I love my first timers. And so we had the double challenge of making this thing accessible to new players, but also kind of taking players who've been doing this for 25 years and say, okay, this is a little bit different. You need to play to lose, or play to create scenes rather than to win, because no one gets out of here alive. Everyone dies in 6 hours, or these characters don't exist after 6 hours, after midnight. They're gone. Right. So drive them like a stolen car.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I like that analogy.
It's not mine, but it's a great one. I forget who coined that one.
So speaking about LARPs that have an ongoing storyline, you have got one that's coming up, the Elysium Chronicles.
Yes. So we got tapped by White Wolf. Me and Jason Carl had several conversations about this, and we're going to be developing the Elysium Chronicles, which is going to be a Camarilla-based game that is set in the V5 timeline. That is going to start next year. We are targeting next February. The city has not been determined yet, but follow us on Twitter and Facebook, Jackalope Live Action Studios, if you want updates. So the entire idea behind the Elysium Chronicles is you're talking about the Commission of Thorns, which is that very elaborate sort of medieval game that they do in a castle in Poland. And we kind of want to make the modern version of it, where this is the Camarilla in the 5th edition universe. It is dealing with the Second Inquisition. It's dealing with renewed war with the Anarchs. It's dealing with conspiracies and infiltrations and the La Sombra and the rise of, the blood cults and all these other things which are developing. And it's going to be kind of a cruise ship experience where we're going to rent out an extremely nice location. It's going to be a manor house or a large, like, marble-filled ballroom. The kind of place you've always wanted maybe to do a LARP in, but never wanted to afford it. You need to be a millionaire to do it every week there. And you buy your ticket. It's all inclusive. It includes your hotel rooms. It includes your meals. It includes all of that jazz. And you go to this place for 3 days and you play out doing the politics of the Camarilla in a story arc which spans, which is set in the current V5 setting, and you affect the outcome and the choices of the Camarilla at these it's not a actual conclave, but at these gatherings of the Camarilla as they do in-person business because they can't do them over the phone anymore. And in addition to that, we're going to be starting games associated with these story arcs called the vignette games. And the vignette games are short one-shot experiences you can play anywhere.
Now, are those also going to be V5?
Yes, they are going to be like
excellent.
Completely arbitrary example, not part of the plans, but let's say that the Camarilla says, yeah, we're going to stomp on LA. We're going to, we've discussed it. We're going to throw everything we got at it. And we want, the Baron of the Valley's head on a stick.
Show's over.
Yeah, show's over. You can have a vignette game in between like 2 Chronicle games, which would be in LA, where you can play the Anarch rave or rant, which is a response to this development and what they decide to do. And that's you play one of those characters. And it's so these things all weave together, and we reserve the right to a little bit of editorial thing. If someone yeets Karst, we're going to say that didn't happen. We're going to walk that back a little bit. But
probably a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, we want to give people freedom without going like, if silly happens, we need to somehow be able to walk it back a little bit. So we have a little bit of editorial privilege, but the idea is that all these things and the choices and the action the players take are all integrated with one another.
Right, and meaningful to the next night when it's the 3-night Elysium Chronicle anyway. The vignette, that sounds fantastic. And I love that you're covering all the different bases of what this game is, between the Sabbat, the Camarilla, and then the vignette with the Anarchs. And I'm very happy that you talked about how the La Sombra are going to be a very big part of the Camarilla's aspect, because that's obviously a hot topic. I mean, it's been something that's happened in Chicago. Is it going to be adopted across all the domains? I guess it's up to each individual prince, it seems, at the moment. But
and how they deal with that.
I'm excited for that. Yeah.
Where are their loyalties actually? That's always a question. So so the base of the Elysium Chronicles, obviously, there's a lot of discussion about what goes into the actual like plot line of a game, right? That's always a huge question. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is we're going to be starting in the baseline universe as it exists. And then we can't guarantee anything we do goes back into the main game line, because that's a lot of breathing room to give to one particular set of players. But we're definitely going to be in contact with the other developers. Several of the people who worked on Chicago by Night are also working on Elysium Chronicles. So there's a lot of shared writing, at least, but it's not that we're going to be as close as there's going to be since the old Camarilla fan club dissolved to an official White Wolf LARP Chronicle.
Man, that is excellent. And thank you for sharing the news. I know myself and a lot of other people have been really excited to hear about the follow-up news since it's been announced. I, for one, am going to be very interested if you end up doing anything close to New England, because then I won't have to buy airfare.
Well, we're definitely looking at the East Coast.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. For exactly, it also gives an opportunity for Europeans to come. And there's a very big, we get at least 5 or 6 players from Europe and several from South America every single year at our events.
Wow. So on the other topic of the other games you run, feel free to talk all you want about Cyberpunk and Mage Noir, which looks so good. The set alone for Cyberpunk, looks like you guys just poured your heart and soul into that.
Oh god, that place was fantastic. I mean, whenever we go into a LARP, we always want to have something else. We always want to start. Yeah, exactly, and we have something amazing. And with Cyberpunk, my directions to the set team was make people stop and stare when they walk into the set, because that was a 10,000-foot warehouse space that was usually used for airsoft battles. Oh, and it was usually used for that, and then we got to adapt it and change it over to using for this other thing. So it was an amazing experience. Charles did a great job setting up the TV tree. We had streaming video all over the place. We had characters offline. Tara Clapper was running this it was a GM that was running things online for players that dialed in. They got to watch security cameras of the marketplace and see what was going on, and like talk to people online via their phones. We had people live streaming. We had the Glitterati, who were basically Instagram stars, who were running around taking pictures during the game, and people were asking questions online about what's going on and stuff like that. It was great. And it's always fun where they decided to set off a electromagnetic pulse with some nukes. And in the timeline for Cyberpunk, the center of town is like a crater from a corporate war. And it was like, where can we set these things off? And everyone was like, just do it in the place that's already been nuked once.
Yeah, right. Are there any other warheads around here we can kick
exactly
just for fun?
Cyberpunk is just like, and the Pondsmiths were so great. We got to talk to Mike Pondsmith about Cyberpunk 20, the Cyberpunk Night City game, and he was really supportive. Unfortunately, we lost that site, so we're still looking for another site that we can run things on, because that's always our biggest expense and our biggest worry is where we can find to actually run these things. Right. And we're lucky to have a really great site for the night in question. But once you have a LARP site, you never give it up, because they are precious, precious things.
Indeed. Well, I hope you find another one that suits your needs for Cyberpunk. I know
we're looking
from the costume design of things, you look like you were having like a blast, like a kid in the candy store.
Oh, God,
the jacket was lit up, the sunglasses. I think you even had a gun, right? That kind of like
well, yeah, we had so many guns. What are you talking about?
Gun?
I mean, yeah, it was.
Well, it was like a Nerf gun that like especially lit up. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, we had put LEDs and everything. Like, luckily, LEDs are cheap, so you could throw them everywhere. But I still have my light up jacket. I still haul it out on occasion. I'm never giving that up.
Yeah, why would you?
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of crafts, you are quite an accomplished artist when it comes to leather work.
Oh yes, thank you.
And I've seen so many of your projects. The one you made, the Cappadocian one for Matthew Dawkins alone, was just a thing of beauty.
That was a gift.
Talk about that if you want to. I mean, I'd love to hear all about it.
Well, I mean, I don't know if anyone else is interested about leatherworking, but I've been a leatherworker for about 3 years. And I just started making these Vampire the Masquerade themed journals, and I've been making them ever since. So, and I've made Giovanni ones, and I've made all sorts of great like my La Sombre one that I made for the night in question. I'm very, very happy with. Yes. And I've also made like chess pieces that are like Sabat, like Gorgets. If you're familiar with
for auction, wasn't it?
That was an auction.
Red was made for auction, right? Yeah,
that was for Jenny, who was the one of the European social media
White
people
Wolf
from White Wolf
manager.
Yeah, Jenny Lux, and she had a bit of she had some trouble, and I helped her out.
I was talking to the community about how you had also made for some of our community friends the Malkavian and Toreador journals for a husband and wife duo, Raylan and Bill. of
oh yeah,
Backstabber
yes.
Studios.
They did they helped us when I was doing the same. There was another fundraiser thing. I tend to do a lot of leather work for fundraising, so I try not to. I don't want to do it as a job because it becomes a job. Right. I just do it to do cool things. So,
well, I'm looking forward to your next fundraiser.
So you have a shot at them.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you might be a friend. That's the other people I make it for. I know, strange idea, right?
Hey, I can always use more friends, especially in good places. Someone
if you're looking for that, we don't have it. We're all scum down here.
That's okay. Scum and villainy is all part of the Malkavian course here.
Okay.
So you also have done the Mage Noir, which
oh god, so we're not done
the
yet.
Noir setting.
Really? We haven't done that is coming up in June, June 6th. There's a wonderful theater that dates back to the 1880s. It was originally a play, like a normal theater, and it became a silent movie house. And it's called the Scottish Rite Theater here in Austin. It was used by the Masons. It's still an active Masonic lodge. It's got a Masonic lodge on the premises. And it is this beautiful leather and marble tile style. Just beautiful, beautiful building. And we managed to rent it out through a friend of a friend. And we're doing, we are running a mage game set in 1946. And it's going to be our first Mage the Ascension game that we're doing. And I love Mage.
It's very exciting.
It is my true love.
I'll have to tweet a picture of my Mage library because I as far as the Ascension goes, I've got maybe a complete set. I absolutely love it.
Pretty damn close to the complete set. I do have the Holy Grail.
Do you? What you got? Oh, the Tarot.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
The first printing of the Tarot. Thank you very much.
Oh, no way. It's not even a reprint.
Yeah, this is the actual Tarot, complete with the book.
That's sweet.
I have the actual tarot cards with protective sleeves, but I have the booklet and everything. So
that is super cool.
Yeah, so that's the thing we're always missing for. The other thing I always get people commenting on is this little sucker right here.
Is it a flask?
There was a official Vampire the Masquerade hit flask, and through a friend of a friend, someone gave this to me many, many years ago, and apparently this is a relatively rare item. It's not quite as sought after as the Ankh necklace that they made only like 100 of.
Right.
But it is pretty. It is a fairly rare piece of memorabilia, and I love it, and I'll never give it away.
Nor should you. I was pretty impressed by Rachel's pewter Sabat ring.
That thing I want. Yeah,
it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah,
or at least cast and then like forge some new ones, right? You know, if that was possible.
So actually, one of my most precious things I got from the night question is that we have a metal worker, and he made handmade Sabat amulets for the night in question.
Oh wow!
I actually have it right over here. Give me one.
You know, I thought for sure you were going to talk about the big metallic sword of cane that you so cleverly show in front of like the fire. That looks like it was.
Oh god, yes, that's a friend of mine who has a plasma cutter, and he took a scrap piece of steel, and he just made this thing with these holes in it, and we got some like industrial chain from Home Depot, and that thing is beautiful. I also have a Camarilla Ankh, which I've used, but because it was just one big sheet of steel, so he just did both of them. But it was that we've been using that, and that was hanging over the dance floor during the Blood Rave. But a friend of mine, Joseph Ginnings, he actually made these for free at the, I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can.
I can. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, he forged that from lead-free Pruder himself. And the thing I love about these is I have the really nice Ankhs. But would that really be what anyone was wearing? Is anyone ordering Sabat Ankhs in the Sabat from China? I don't think so.
No way. They're making them
themselves. They're making it themselves. They're hand casting it. And you know, I have
That's super cool.
I mean, I have so many Sabbat like dangles now. It's not even funny though. My most precious one, and you might recognize this person's work. This is Shannon Knudsen, who's a local player, really good friend of mine. She makes Sabbat rosaries.
No way. I believe I'm friends with her on social media. I will be reaching out.
Yeah, Girly Cakes, I think her name is. But she made actually rosaries for all of the LA by Night cast members and got their clan symbols made for them. So cool. Yeah, and of course, Jason Carl got the Ankh one. So I, of course, have the exact opposite.
The anti-Carl.
I opened it.
So here's a question I didn't think about asking before, but do you have a favorite clan? Or at least
you're inviting me to make a controversial statement.
You can skip it. I don't care. That's fine.
I like all the clans. I think some hit a little bit better than others. I think some are easier to play. It really depends on the situation. I like all the clans. But I think that the certain clans are they're easier to play, they're easier to engage with in a story, and their role is far more archetypal and thus easier to engage with. So I really like the Tzimisce, but the Tzimisce are actually surprisingly tough to play as characters.
I imagine.
Both as NPCs and PCs. And they are a very specific tool for a very specific job. The Brujah are very evergreen. The Toreador and the Brujah can play in any situation. The Nosferatu can have this kind of universal spy master sort of thing. So I think when you're talking about clans and which one is your favorite or whatever, what you're really talking about is really what you like to play as. Yeah, and what you're trying to do as a storyteller. That all said, Toreador Anti-Tribu is officially my clan because Matthew Dawkins has declared me to be such. And I don't mind that designation. That's the only thing I will say.
Well, if it came from him, it's
official. I am officially a Toreador. He said I was a Toreador, and I said I will accept Toreador Anti-Tribu.
They're a whole different animal.
Yeah,
a wonderful different animal. Is that?
I play whenever I play. I typically play Toreador Anti-Tribu or La Sombra.
Very good. I'm currently playing a La Sombra in a V5 game. I love the Malkavians, Setites, Giovanni, but
I like the Hekata. I really like the idea of the Hekata. I think good. I think it really expands what that clan is and really makes them, breathes new life into them in a really cool way.
Absolutely.
So I really like them.
And they made the Samedi a little more playable as it seems like as they joined the family, they've kind of lost the rotting corpse appearance. They still, via the bloodline lore sheets, can have some of that if you liked the flavor text, but it seems like they all coalesced a little bit more than they had in the past, which is interesting. I'm excited.
Well, even the Nosferatu are less like monstrously hideous. They are
right with the new errata.
Yeah, in the new errata,
but not masquerade breaking.
Exactly. So either some Darwinian stuff is going on, or I think the way I've interpreted it is that in the aftermath of the Red Star and the Gehenna War and all this stuff, something has happened where a lot of stuff has become much more. Things have peeled back. The blood has changed due to some repercussions of something which happened there.
And I like that theory. It obviously also kind of meshes in with what's happened with the Tremere.
Yes.
So that's a lot of fun. I like that.
The Tremere have become way cooler to play. Like way
very
cooler.
Interesting, right?
I
want them to expand on the houses a little more.
Of all the changes, I really like the Tremere in the fact
I think that was my favorite. Right.
Yeah. Because it shook them up in a way that they really needed to be. It really needed to be. And then again, I'm also a big fan of those moments in the World of Darkness where you get to see what the bad guys like go time looks like. Like if they just pull out all the stops. Like one of the things I loved about like one of the great redeeming features of the Time of Thin Blood plot line with Ravenna rising in Bangladesh and all that is completely separate from the vampire stuff. Is the fact that you get to see what technocracy go time looks like.
Oh yeah,
like technocracy, we're going in hot, pull everything, fire. What technocracy fire everything looks like is so
it was
good.
like a special nuke. Yeah, from space when the light of the
3.
sun. Yeah,
they dropped 3.
yeah.
Oh no,
And,
the special nuke. They had
mentioned
3 sun satellites. That was their opening move. I'm like,
yeah, and that,
what was it called? Code Ragnarok. Where
I think Dawkins mentioned it as well.
Yeah,
he was either an interview with him or somewhere else where he was talking about how that was so badass that it also affected what was beyond the shroud.
Oh, exactly.
You know, and caused like another maelstrom.
Just like all the upgrade of like when Code Ragnarok got activated, which was the technocracy code for everything, is on the table. Like world-ending, humanity-destroying event is on the table. Nothing is out of bounds. Everything is acceptable losses. Whatever. It's like, okay, we're going to open up with 3 like satellites that are beaming sunbeams. We're going to call in weather control. We're firing lasers. Yeah. Screw it. Magically enhanced B-2 bomber with a premium enhanced nuke. Let's see what this does. Fire a warning shot. Yeah, this is a nuke, sir. Potato, potato. Fire the warning shot.
This is how serious we are about protecting reality, people.
Exactly.
Right? You know?
We're going to rip a hole in it and destroy everything. But it's dead.
And, no one, and no one heard about how the other antediluvians kind of go back into sleep a little more. They're like, you're going to hit the snooze button. Maybe another 1,000 years when the technocracy's not around.
Yeah, no, yeah. That's always fun to see what go time looks like. It's kind of like, I don't think we've seen Pentex go time. I think we kind of need to.
I really hope that's where Werewolf 5th goes. That would be interesting.
It kind of has to. I mean, I was really excited to hear when they were talking about at World of Darkness Berlin, like the tagline they had for W5 is Gaia dies in a fever. And I'm like, ooh. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know it's been a while and game directions change, but I'm like, whatever happens, you have to keep that line. That's a great line.
Absolutely.
Once you write that line, it stays in.
Oh, and it was funny, you know, we were at PAX Unplugged right as that got announced. And it was such a whirlwind of a weekend that I was like thinking about looking it up, reading a couple tidbits, and then it was all right, next game, you know? So it really hasn't hit home that a Werewolf 5 is actually coming out. And
and I'm lining
plus
up
the video game 5. As well.
But so getting back to Mage Noir, actually.
Have they said anything though? Right.
You know, I've heard a couple whispers of it, and if W5 goes well, why not? I mean, that's the big triad, right? Is Werewolf, Vampire, and Mage. Those are the top 3. So yeah, Changeling.
I would love to see Phil Brucato return for that as well.
Maybe. I mean, M20 is great, though. Phil has very strongly indicated that his magnum opus is M20, and he's probably gonna step away from Mage after that. So I really hope, and I definitely will be doing what I can to make sure that somebody someone worthy of that game runs
nominate
it.
Terry Robinson.
Yeah. Terry is great. I don't know if he wants to write Mage supplements. Maybe he does. But
he's done a couple of source books.
Oh yeah, he's done the stuff on Drive-Thru RPGs, the Storyteller's Vault. Yeah. And
I believe he posted one recently as well.
Yeah. He does really good stuff. And so M5, you know, I've heard it mentioned as a possibility. I don't know anything else beyond that.
Yeah.
So, but I'm all about it. My joke about Mage is that Mage is what storytellers would rather be playing. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Well, you have a lot more creativity, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what it is, but every person storytelling a vampire game, most of them would like to play Mage. So it's kind of the storyteller's game because it's about the nature of reality and what you believe and systems, and it's got all these really great notes that get into it. So I really have always loved Mage. And the reason why we started running Mage Noir is because I just wanted to run something that allows you to dress up in that classic noir style, right? Because half of what you do when you go into LARP is what kind of like visual notes is this hitting, what kind of like feeling and atmosphere has to be a lot more tenable. So we started looking around. It's like noir sounds great, like classic hard-boiled sort of stuff. And then we started looking at, okay, so when do we run it? Do we run in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, 50s, the Dashiell Hammett era? When do we do that? And we started looking very specifically at just after the war, like just after World War II.
Idea.
And
now I was going to ask earlier if the setting you found that was wonderful, if that was part of the decision to go noir, or if noir was the direction you wanted to go in the first place, and you just found the dream location.
So it's always kind of a dance of location versus setting. And this said, I wanted to do noir, and I had an idea for it, and I had some locations. And then through a friend of mine, Alan, who was involved with that lodge, he said, come down and take a look at this place. You can rent it. And I looked around. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to have to write the plot for this. And me and Rachel Wilkinson, who's my co-story writer, co-lead on that project, we looked at it and went like, yeah, this is a chantry. This is something. And it's like all these like leather couches and statues and woodwork and all this stuff. We're like, and it's this gorgeous location. And we were able to, get the friend of a friend rate on it, because that's how everything with the Masons operates. And we were able to write it for that. And also, like, the initial idea was mages and fedoras is great because I grew up on cheesy made-for-TV HBO movies, like in the 90s, and there was this one glorious one called Cast a Deadly Spell, which was post-war LA plus like pulp magic, and it was so good.
Wow.
Yeah, I
wonder if that's still on HBO.
Private Investigator. It's cheesy. It's really good, but I always had that kind of sticking in my brain. So I was like, let's do this. And I started looking in the history, and we started getting, the serious part about it. Like, because you get the, that's the image. At least I'll have my creative process where it's just like, that's the money shot. That's the image, right, of what's going on. Like, wizards and fedoras, we're done. We got that. Okay. And then you start building, then you see whether there's anything more to that once you start chasing that thread. And what we find out is that the 1946 era in Mage the Ascension is really provocative, because you're dealing with you're dealing with some heavy stuff. You're dealing with
a serious time, and it's right before the revolution of love and peace, and
exactly. The technocracy and the mages just work together for the first time in a long time in order to get rid of the Nefandi in Europe. Also there's all this stuff coming out. The virtual adepts are about to break away. A lot of them, they basically have already. They found out the New World Order supported the Nazi regime for a very long time. They support, according to the virtual adept book, the technocracy thought the fascists were the way to go until 44. Until they finally went, oh, wait a second, this is all lies.
Yeah, a little too late. Yeah,
right. And meanwhile, the virtual adepts, at that point, the difference engineers are running around going, no, they're helping crack the Enigma code. They're working behind the rest of the technocracy's back the entire time. These are bad people. What are you doing? And there's this huge aftermath of the collapse of a idea of the world. But you also have this idea that mages always had this conversation about, is Ascension for the many or is it for the elite? Is it for mages or is it for the masses, right?
Everyone, right? Yeah.
And the World War I and World War II represent this massive challenge to this idea that we should give people power. You know, you look
what
at what's going
when you do.
Exactly. What do they do with it? They do this, all of this.
Yeah.
So,
which isn't good, right?
Exactly. And this is going to be much more of a exploration LARP, and a LARP about philosophy and the role of the individual, and moral responsibility,
and that's
what happens.
Perfect, because that's what Mage is.
Exactly. And it's this very iconic moment.
Very
but
smart.
At the same time, there's a lot of conversation to have about what kind of subject matter do you want to deal with. And that goes into a consent thing and goes into a discussion. It's like, do you want to, as a player, deal with certain aspects of what is coming out in 1946? What is being, what people are dealing with? Because you're dealing with, the aftermath of the war. You're dealing with people who
immigration,
you're dealing with national identity.
Refugees.
You're dealing. Do you want to, as a player, deal with the subject matter of war and PTSD? Do you want to deal with the realities of the Holocaust, or do you want to deal with the concept of fascism? We're not writing Nazi characters in, but you're dealing with people who saw something, saw true evil arrive. So do you want to engage with those? Exactly. And
did they do something or nothing?
You're dealing with we have several we're very lucky to have a great deal of female applicants to play in the game. We had 120 applicants to a 40-person game, and we were close to 50-50 parity on them.
Good for you.
And so it's just like,
especially
you want to
Mage,
deal with the fact that you just went, Rosie the Riveter is being turned into Mrs. Cleaver. Like, that's about to happen. What do you deal with that? And do you want to deal with the fact that, we have several people of color have expressed interest, and they're like, and there's been a rightful concern. It's like, how are you going to deal with like the realities of racism in 1940s America? And our response is that we want to deal with it the way you want to deal with it, because that's not our story to tell. If you want to tell that story, it needs to be in your voice, because we're not qualified to tell it. And
by all means, please come and tell that story so we can be part of it.
Or don't. If you don't want to engage with that subject matter, that's your prerogative. You don't have to accept the burden of that. But if that's something you want to process through this art form, because role playing is an art form, LARP is an art, it's a form of performance art. But if you want to process that through that, you're allowed to. If you do not wish to, that's fine too. So it's all about having that conversation and communicating clearly to the players what our subject matter limits are. And that always gets back to our, that goes back to the Night in Question stuff. We have stuff that's just plain banned. We're not dealing with it. We don't care. That would be unrealistic. We're not dealing with various types of slang that was really common in the 90s. That's, we now realize, wait a second, that's a horrible way to talk to somebody. It was wrong then, it was wrong now, we're not going to do it again. We're not running a living history piece.
They're out of the public vernacular for a reason, and we're here to have fun.
Exactly. It's not, we're not, this is not Colonial Williamsburg 1990s edition, and we're not going to do stuff that makes people feel actively uncomfortable and makes them feel unwelcome in our space, just because there's no reason to do that. It's not what to deal with. We don't deal with sexual assault and violence, because we're already dealing with a lot of stuff. We're not saying that there's no game on the planet that can deal with that subject matter. There are ones that do, but they do so in a very controlled environment, very safely, and with people who have signed up for that specifically. They don't just introduce this into your splatterpunk horror thing. So you have to be mindful of what people want, and as runners, we say no. It's like, this is what we're focusing on, and I
respect that decision, absolutely.
Thank you. And it's just one of those things we just have to focus. We just have to set our limits and make sure that other people's limits are respected. And that's a huge conversation what's going on right now in gaming. And it always confuses me why there's so much resistance to it.
Well, I mean, luckily, I think in the last year, we've seen a lot of people push for that consent in gaming, fairness, inclusivity. And Jackalope LARP has been definitely one of those forerunners right from the get-go, as the popularity of everything you guys have been doing is just increased, which has been wonderful to see. Are there any cons you're going to this year?
I'm looking at going to Gen Con. I've been there for the last 2 years.
Awesome. We're going too.
I was supposed to go to PAX South, but I got a new job, so that didn't happen.
Well, congratulations on the new job anyway.
Well, thank you. I'm going to be working for a gaming company, like moving away from my defense contracting stuff to going and actually working on mobile gaming. So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about going to Gen Con, and that's probably going to be, that's really the con I go to for the most part, because I'm always planning other games. I have Mage in June, and I've got The Night in Question in September, and so it's kind of odd because game writing, that's not like a game writer where I take a break and go to a convention. I'm always coming on these like weekend events that are kind of mini conventions in their own right. So it's kind of weird for me.
Yeah, truth. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about all the wonderful projects you're involved in. We will be looking forward to more news on not only future content, but everything coming out of The Night in Question.
Absolutely. And I hope to see you guys there. And yeah, and Jackalope LARP on Twitter and jackalope-larp.com. And you can also find us at Jackalope Live Action Studios on Facebook. And I think we have 3 early bird tickets left right as of this moment. So we've already way outsold ourselves from last year. So, and that means there's only 80 tickets left.
Well, I hope you continue this for many more years. It's been a wonderful thing.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for coming, Matthew. All right, everybody. I think that's it for our show tonight. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any other questions for Matthew, better post them quick in the chat room because I think we're about to end.
I can stay a little longer. Rachel's... I don't want to give us if anyone wants to ask a few quick questions, I can definitely do it.
Yeah. Rachel says finger planting in blood is fun as hell. I think she joined us a little late. Thanks for being here. Marchosius did have to take off. His little girl, who we saw briefly on camera, had fallen out of bed and she got hurt. So we wish her the best. And he's a great, a great dad. So, but all right, Matthew. Thank you so much for coming. Wish you the best and hope to have you on again sometime soon.
All right, thanks.